Well, let's go ahead and get started. Joe, do you want to get us started off?
Sure. Well, in your council packet, there was a packet for study session.
Joe, you're muted, Joe.
Oh, sorry. In your council packet, there's a, I don't know, we're gonna have an echo. We gotta close some doors here. Okay, so in your packet, there's a study session packet, and on the first page of that, or I guess the second page, would be an overall summary that shows the site plan and a cost estimate, which was presented to you at the last council meeting and was discussed by the architect McKinsey. We've had some discussions internally between Dale and Dan, Kristen, and myself, and we believe that there's a couple of things that wasn't on there, like such as getting fiber optics from City Hall to that site, and what we're going to do about that landscaping and whatnot. So anyway, we are showing it in your packet there as a $12.6 million project, and we understand that we're going to make an attempt to reduce some of these items down in cost and eliminate some items in scope. So I wanted you to understand where we started from, and there was a floor plan. I didn't know if you had any additional questions on the floor plan, but we can move to page 8. You'll see the page numbers at the bottom of your packet, and the first one is shows a 20-year option for a $12.6 million facility at 2.5% interest, which is 40 semi-annual payments, and those equate to $402,209.82, and you can see that in your packet. And then it goes down about what the total payments would be, how much interest there is, and what you take for a utility tax to pay off a loan or bonds at that 2.5%, which equates to about an 84 cents per thousand of assessed valuation. And we'll get to another table in a minute that'll put those percentages in more perspective. Then the next item is the 12.6 at 25 years, 2.5%. You'll see that it decreases the annual payments or the semi-annual payments down, but the interest rate is going to go up, and our total payment amount will go up, and the total interest, of course, is going to be up, but it lowers the utility tax 12% down to 12%, or 0.71 cents per thousand. And then the third one is a 30-year 2.5%, which knocks the payments for 60 semi-annual payments down to about 300,000 and 5.385 interest and a 10.5% utility tax for a 63 cents per thousand of assessed valuation. So then if you go to page 9, you'll see kind of what a typical residential cost, what that means to a residential unit for what the utility tax would mean for that. So the first one is 1,000 cubic feet. That is, an average use in the winter for water, and a 90-gallon garbage can. So it shows a utility tax at 14.2% and a $13.71 increase. The second one is 4,000 cubic feet, which is a typical summer rate, and it shows at 14.2, again the same, and that is still a 20-year at $19.2 increase. And then if you go on to the next page, page 10, and it's the same for a winter and a summer, and it goes 1159, 1622, and the bottom we also threw in a duplex. But that's for a 25-year. And then page 11 is for a 30-year, We have a winter on top for the 1,000 cubic feet, summer for 400 cubic feet, and then for a duplex, and it shows the corresponding increases. Then you go to page 12, you'll see the years to bond maturity, 20, 25, and 30, and the cost per 1,000 is 84 and 71 and 63, which equates to a monthly cost of 1,407, 1191, and a 1049, based on a $200,000 home. And then the other pages in there are just more of a breakdown for the 20, 25, and 30 year annual, semi-annual payments, and it has a little more detail, but those other tables pretty much summarize everything that's in there. So anyway, now let's open up for questions. Dale and I will try to answer them. Dale's on this too somewhere. Yeah, there he is. He says he's on there. I don't know. You guys can just ask what you want. That's what we're looking at. No matter which way we go, whether it's a bond or whether it's a low interest loan, obviously the city is going to have to repay it. It's and there's a decision item in the packet later during the regular council meeting where then you folks are going to ask, but if you can today, make a decision whether you want to go with the council approved or go out for a voter approved method to fund that facility. So yeah, I know we're going to be done pretty quick here, but I just wanted to get some idea to you guys out and have questions.
Kevin?
We had a discussion some time back about needing to do work on the water treatment facility. And then there was if I remember right, that was 10 or 15 years down the road. And then at that point in time, what would be our debt max on our debt ratio that we would be? I just don't want to push this out and then not be able to do something that we need to do.
Well, that treatment plant comprehensive plan is still being worked on, and currently we're at 2.2 million gallons a day is what our capacity is at. I don't think we're more than like 1.9, but this will show how many years out we're projecting on growth, where we will be at the 2.2 and what it's going to take to increase capacity to handle the projected growth. So we don't have those numbers yet. It's part of that study. We're looking to try to determine whether or not we can stay at the existing site or whether we got to move over across the tracks just south of the Public Works facility. And that depends on the treatment process, whether we can change and stay in our current location, or whether we just, in order to get the capacity that we need, we're going to have to move. So it hasn't been determined yet, and the cost for those things is what we're still working on. That's the reason why we asked council to approve the study, and I don't think it'll be done until sometime later in the fall. In fact, you're going to see in your council packet there is a request to roll over. We didn't realize that in the budget. So there was $80,000, I think, in there last year, and we only spent about 8 or 9 or something. And we wanted to roll that over this year to pay for those costs. So some of that debt limit, Dale, help me if you can, I can't remember. Is it
well,
general obligation is different than from utility enterprise funds debt?
Well, and yes, what we're talking about with the Law and Justice Center is the issuance of general obligation debt. Under the state's rules, we are limited currently to around $14 million in general obligation debt. The improvements for the utility, Kevin, are funded through what's called revenue debt, in that in the ordinances that provide for the issuance of the bond, we pledge and we're required to collect sufficient revenues from the utility customers in order to ensure that the debt service is met on those revenue bonds. So, they're kind of apples and oranges as far as a debt limit, other than, the true limit is how much we expect or impose on our taxpayers on their ability to pay. So for the water system, just if we issue revenue debt, we're going to have to raise water rates to satisfy the needed debt flows, the debt payments to pay off those bonds. On this general obligation debt, what Joe just presented to you are two scenarios in how those debt service costs can be satisfied. One would be through property taxes, and the other would be through utility taxes.
Kevin?
Since nobody else is asking anything. So I'm just trying to figure out the order that things are going to come in to us to be looked at and voted on. If we make a decision whether or not we go general obligation bond or utility tax, the numbers aren't set yet, are they? I mean, this I know this is proposed and presented, but for example, we have a healthy savings or money set aside that we could pull $1 million off the top of this to start with. When is that decision made versus whether or not we do utility or bond?
Well, and so, yeah, what you're speaking of there, I think, is more so the amount needed for the issuance on the bond. It doesn't matter how we repay it, but how much do we truly need to issue in order to satisfy the $12.6 million of construction costs. And, I was directed to write up the scenario with the expectation that we will be issuing a bond for $12.6 million without consideration to the money we currently have in funds 140, 301, and 310 that are available to defray some of the total cost of construction. But as Joe pointed out, and I've not been involved in all the discussions, but apparently this 12.6 is in addition to the monies that are currently available in those three funds. Is that correct, Joe?
Yes, well, yeah, that's correct. And there is money in those three funds. And maybe we could take $1 million out of that to help offset this 12.6. The wording of the ballot, the amount of the ballot, and all that has to be to the county election office right somewhere in the beginning of August. So between now and then, we'll have to work with the consultant, the architect, to finalize what this amount will be and look at what we can comfortably take out of those reserve accounts to bring down that bond request between now and August. But then we've got to submit that to the election office, and at that time we need to have made that decision. But right now, the question needs to be which way we're going to proceed, because there's two different avenues to go, and we'd like to know where we're at, because that is going to help Dan. Dan's going to have to go out, and he started a little bit now, but he has to go out and get his supporters to kind of campaign for this issue. The city, can't campaign and ask for a yes vote. We can only say general information about why it's needed, but this citizens committee that has come to him and said that they'd like to go out and actually physically campaign for it and campaign for a yes vote. So he's going to need some time to campaign for that, or advertise, or whatever you want to call it, to try to get the information out to the public. So yeah, we just want to know which way we're going to go. If council wishes to just say, okay, well, they're going to, you guys are going to, we're going to go out for a loan, and you want to impose a utility tax, and then you decide which 20, 25, or 30 year, then we'll get hold of the USDA folks and talk to some folks and get that ball rolling that way. So it's just that it's going to take some time if we're going to be at the general election in November, and in order to be successful with that method.
Joe, can you update us on what the Maruto utility tax was? What was the percentage on that one? Or maybe Dale, and how long that took to pay off?
Well, he'd probably be better at it. It was something like 10 years, I think we projected, but we only went 8 or something because revenues came in stronger, and Dale's always trying to keep us out of hot water, so he always kind of projects out a scenario, and it came in better, so we retired it early. So Dale, if you could give him the particulars on that.
Well, yeah, the bond utility tax was 15%. The actual I don't have it memorized as far as the actual implementation date of that utility tax. I'm going to look here at a file. But, as we were able to end the imposition 2 years early. That this year in December, we'll make the final payment, but it was in the fall of 20 that we actually quit imposing the utility tax. So let me pull up a file here.
While you're pulling that up, Dale, I guess that's kind of my thought is whatever we project out or whatever we decide on based on history doesn't, we can't predict the future, but based on history, we tend to try to pay it off faster than what's expected.
Well, and
do that.
Go ahead.
A bond is set, and bonds are sold for a specific time, and so we're not allowed to go in there and pay those off early. Some of them come up for sale, and the city wouldn't purchase them, and then we retired them. But you can't just go out and pay everybody back, because they have an expectation of so many years that they bought into, and they're expecting the interest on their payment.
Well, and what Joe's saying is correct, that a bond ordinance can have early call provisions and might not have. As it turned out on these Maruto bonds, they did not have the early call provision. But some of the earlier bonds, it has been actually included within the bond ordinance. So I'm not sure what exactly controls that. If that's just a determination at the front end, at the time of drafting or issuance, and or perhaps there have been some legal changes in the bonding industry where that's a thing of the past, and but yeah, that's something we could get more information on.
Roger?
Yes, just a couple of comments about where the committee ended up in discussion anyway with the 2 different methods of financing, and the the one, my preference has always been to stay away from utility tax. And try and run a bond for a vote. You get a broader perspective from the community on that. The dilemma enters in saying, if we fail to pass a bond, that our cost by delaying a year, if we don't pass it, which is realistically what would happen, would go up by about $1 million for the same facility. So then the question becomes, is it really in the best interest of the community to have a utility tax and guarantee where the price is going to be and not go with that? But of course, the real bottom line question is, do we really need this police department? And our committee was unanimous in belief that we really need the police department. And so thus enters the dilemma of how we want to determine the financing of that. So, that's basically where we're at right now.
Dale or Joe, can you speak to the changing interest rates versus what we have now and what we've heard already and potentially what to come?
We were projecting a 2.5%. And some of the numbers that we looked at from lending agencies in the past was like a 2% for
20 years.
20 years, and then it was like 2.5 for 25, up to 2.75 for 30 years. Now, just yesterday, I read that the feds said they're serious and they're going to be making some interest rate increases. They believe that raising interest rates will slow consumption of goods and materials, and therefore will act to try to slow down inflation. So there's a real possibility that these interest rates that we just got, a 2.5%, I think it was, on our USDA loan for the sewer project on Natchez, those may evaporate and go up another quarter of a percent. Still looking.
Well, and from what I've heard, I think 0.25% only would be optimistic. It sounds as well. We know what 2 weeks ago the Fed raised a 0.25 point. I guess they were meeting tomorrow, and they're looking at another 0.25 point, and they were suggesting they could have 6 increases this year. So, these interest costs are only going to go up. I'm sure they're not going to go down. And but that it doesn't matter. I guess if we go property tax or utility tax, both of those would have to increase as well over the projections here.
Well, and obviously, if you do raise them up that many times this year, by the time this goes to the vote in November, we're going to have to project what that new interest rate is going to be.
Certainly.
So not only can we, if we wait a year, can we expect approximately 5% increase in cost, but also interest rates are unpredictable.
Well,
no. Yeah, I would say that they are predictable, that they are going to go up.
Predict they're going to go up.
Go upward, yeah.
How much? Yeah.
I'd like to get other council members giving some input, so we'll just go down the list here. Those who haven't spoken yet, and Mike, since you're on the committee as well, we'll start with you and get your input.
As far as my thoughts on it, this is a really tough decision. At first, I wasn't even thinking we're considering a utility tax increase. But the more we got into it as a committee, and the more I saw the need, how much or how badly we need this, it's tough. That, I mean, if it fails, then what do we do? We're between a rock and a hard place. So it is definitely a need, not just a want, but a need. And you know, it's for me, yeah, the utility tax. Now I'm definitely considering that just because of that. And then you've got the increases in the interest rates now. And yeah, I heard I've been reading the same thing. It's supposed to be up to 6 increases this year and possibly another 3 next year. And some of them could be as big, or the biggest one coming up could be up to 0.5%. So it's not going to get any cheaper. And it's definitely something that we need to do.
Thanks, Mike. Liz, your thoughts?
So I guess my instinct would be that I would want the voters to weigh in on it. That would be my first instinct. But so let's say hypothetically we did run a bond and it failed in November. Could we then just turn around and, you know, in December or January, just change our minds and do the utility tax approach and obtain a low interest loan and do it that way?
Yeah, you can do that. I don't know what the people would think once they told us no, and then we turn around and then decide that we're not going to take no for an answer. That's, you know, and if you take the bond and the bond fails, just make some tough cuts and make a different decision and just strip that building down some more to make it more palatable to the voters? Or do you just run it again and continue on and try to get the information out to more than what you had made contact with between now and this November? I mean, yeah, I don't know what to tell you, but yeah, you can do that.
That's definitely an option, but yeah, it doesn't sit too well. One, you know, my thoughts are that that people want a voice in their taxes, for one, and number two, we want a safe community, and we want a police station that's supported, a police force that's supported. And so if you do a utility tax and don't let the people give their input, every time they drive by that building, they're going to think less and less of the police officers who are in it. That's my opinion. Some people may not, but those who are against it are going to be more against them. So my opinion is that put it to the voters. How about your thoughts, Jared?
Yeah, I think there's no question that the people need to vote on this matter. I think it needs to be positioned, number one, the best way that it will pass with the voters and get the best voter turnout. And number two, I think the people need to be educated on the price point. Just running the numbers. I mean, just looking at that a 0.25% increase, which we know it's going to go up. I mean, that's $400,000 difference plus materials. So if this doesn't pass in a year, I mean, this could be significant and costly. And so I think people who are unaware of you know, financial literacy, I mean, it's just going to get more expensive and significantly, but it's got to be up to them. Period. They're the ones paying for it. I think the work is how are they going to be educated to know know about it. I think there needs to be visibility. I mean, nobody's attending these meetings, and that concerns me, as well as the price.
Let me throw something else out, and because you guys need to know everything we can give you. But the way it works, it's kind of like you got to have percentages to pass. And last year in the general election, there were 1,681 voters at the Selah polls. And out of that 1,681, you need to have 40% of those voters turn out. And so that is 670, almost 673 voters that needs to vote in this year's election. And out of that 673 voters, you need 60% to pass. So that would mean you're going to need 403 yes votes out of that. So, I don't know if that's a tall hurdle to get over, but those are the numbers.
Joe, do we have our numbers on that for the past few years on voter turnout?
No, I do not.
Those are easily available.
Yeah, I'm going to look here in an election folder, and possibly I can extract that shortly.
Thanks, Dale. Cliff, you have some thoughts?
Well, I was like Mike, committee coming in thinking that it was a bond, thinking my overall thought is that if we're talking about a public facility, that we ought to put it out to the people, and had not really considered the utility tax option. Price wise, when you look at homeowners' price per month, it's basically the same, insignificant kind of difference. And I'm pretty confident that we could pass the bond, but you never know what it is. I don't think that if the bond failed, that we could turn around and do, yeah, technically we could. I don't think it would be good practice to have the general electorate, the people vote it down, and then turn around and raise their taxes anyway. And so, and to address Kevin's issue earlier about the debt limit, if we do like a 20-year bond, by the time the water project would come up in 10 to 15 years, half or more, well, sort of, a lot of that debt limit would be back on the table. It is something we need. I don't know. We've spent a year, the committee spent a year looking at stripping the building down as much as you can. I don't know if, like Joe said, if it fails, if a bond fails, and strip the building as much back as we can and put it forth again. About the only thing that's left to strip is to take the court out of it and just make it a strictly police station.
Thanks, Cliff. Dale, did you find that info?
Yes, I did. And 2020 was a presidential election year, if you might recall. And so as a result, we had extremely high voter turnout. It was 3,807. In the year prior to that, 2019, it was back to that 1,611. So about the same range as what we had last year. The year before that, 2018, we had 2,613. I don't know what happened that year, but we had extra voters turnout. So to me, that's a good sign. And in the year before that, 2017, we only had 988 voters. But anyhow, it's all over the board, so to speak. But I would tend to think that 1,600 participating last year, since it wasn't a presidential election, it would seem as though we could get a 40% turnout. The question is to get 60% of those voters to vote yes would probably be the more major issue than meeting the turnout requirement.
Thanks, Dale. I'd agree with that. Chief Crispin, do you have any thoughts you want to share on this?
No, I don't necessarily think so. Sorry, I'm trying to get my camera to work. It's fighting with me. So, I know this is a tough decision, council. I don't take that lightly. The one thing that I know is the issue is, whether or not this bond would pass. I understand the difference between, putting our hopes in the community and or acting as a, council body that you were elected to make these sort of tough decisions. That's each of you will have to, resolve that yourself. I can't do that. All of you have been through the police department. You've seen the current facility. You know what the needs are. We've discussed that sort of ad nauseum in some meetings. And the council or the community has even, many of them have made their way through here as well. So it seems like some of the terms that we've heard are, embarrassing or appalling, or I had no idea that the police department was what it was. It looks relatively good from the outside, but once you step inside, you realize what its limitations are. I will tell you this, and I've said this to the construction committee multiple times. I've been out in the community, and the people who engage with me tell me that they would vote for this bond. And I have had confidence in what they've told me, and continue to have confidence in what they told me. And so I guess with that being said, I'm willing to go out there. We have a group of very able-bodied community members who have said that they want to get out and spread the word. They'll ring doorbells, they'll hang door hangers, they'll talk to people. And my commitment to you is that I'll do the same thing for the educational piece. All that being said, I think if you want to lock this in and concrete it, then the answer is a councilmatic vote. And I think I agree with Joe that if we go out and the voters say no, that it would be a sort of a proverbial slap in the face if you as a council turned around and then voted in favor of it. But that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Chief. Any other thoughts from the group? Yeah, Cliff.
You may have covered this the first couple of minutes while I was arguing with the computer. But when we go out for a bond, it costs money to run the election. It costs money to manage the bond. Is that all rolled into the total bond amount? And how much are we talking about when you add all of those hidden fees?
You're asking what does it cost to run a bond on the ballot?
Not only running the bond on the ballot, but aren't there administrative fees that go along with managing the bond for however long the life of the bond?
Well, I would say there's issuance cost, Cliff. The financial person here at City Hall is the administrator over the debt service payments, and there's no additional costs, unfortunately, in that regard. It's a fixed salary for that position. But so, yeah, the costs would be for the election process and for the bond issuance. And offhand, I can't tell you those dollars. I think Joe had some thoughts about the election costs. Joe, didn't you maybe suggest 20 grand?
25,000. That was just based on some conversations I've had and some conversations with Roger with the pool that, you know, I know in the past we've done some. And that's kind of what the ticket came in from the county. That's for a general election. If we go out for a special election, then it's going to be more. If we go back out, let's say April of next year.
We just got last night the pool's cost for the election last November, which was a lower cost because it was on the November ballot, not a smaller ballot. So and our cost was right at 15. It's a little under that. $14,900 was the cost. So it's, yeah, the numbers we're talking about, it's relatively insignificant.
Well, and for us, since the aquatic center was the entire school district boundary, and the city is just a small part of that entire boundary, you know, of course, ours should be less than what that bill was.
Hey, Roger, do you have, in regards to the pool, when I look at the police station versus the pool, I like them both, but I look at the pool as more of a want and a police station as more of a need. What was the lowest number on the elections? I believe this is most recent year, but do you remember what the lowest approval vote came in at?
Yeah, this last November was the lowest approval rate we had. It was only about, I'm not real positive, but I know it was down in the low 50s, probably about 53, 54%, somewhere in there.
Thanks, Roger. And Joe, just to confirm, we need a super majority on this. We need a 60% to pass. Is that correct?
Yes.
We have about 10 minutes left. Anybody have some thoughts or input or questions? Mike.
Just out of curiosity, with the projected building or development that would be going up into Crusher Canyon, how would all new development in our area or our city, how would that impact going either direction with either utility tax or with the real estate tax?
Well, you know, as the new construction occurs, the tax base, the assessed value goes up, and then the rate per thousand goes down. So depending upon the annual review by the county assessor on a particular taxpayer, you know, if there was no increase in assessed value, your taxes would go down because there's a larger tax base. If you're part of that increase in assessed value, then it just depends. You know, your taxes could go up or could go down, even though the rate per thousand went down.
And, you know, I want to say that we looked at potential homes that could be either built through vacant lots or subdivisions. And I think it was like 270. You know, those could take years to build. Dale and I looked back, I think from 2011 through 2021, and there was 1,700, maybe some change of increase in population in 20 years. So that was citywide and through some annexations, but not big ones. But so how much of that would come off the Crusher Canyon? I don't know.
Well, I think this is Jeff Peters. I wanted to just kind of add to what Joe said. So that Crusher Canyon sewer line is actually extending out from the city limits up into our urban growth boundary, where it kind of terminates near the top of the hill. Just like Joe said, I believe the number is somewhere around in the 200 range to, you know, maybe like 230 or 217, like what he was saying, as far as number of connections that the wastewater treatment plant could go and accommodate. But in order for that area to be, you know, counted as taxes for the city, those developments and homes would have to be annexed into the city. And at this point in time, we don't have any outside utility agreements or developers in that area coming in and saying, yes, you know, I'm waiting for the sewer line to go up the hill and I'm going to annex so I can get the cheaper connection charges and sewer charges for that new development. So it could be quite a long time.
Everyone get their questions answered? Joe, any parting thoughts? Oh, hang on, we have a Liz, please.
Sorry, Russ, I just wanted to ask really quick. So does the term, regardless of which option we go with, does the term like the 20 years, 25 or 30 years, does that get determined later? Or are we going to decide that this evening as well?
No, we don't have to determine it now. What we'd like to do is get direction from council as to which method you guys want to go. And then, like I say, we have to meet with the architect a little bit more to get this estimate firmed up, and then we can bring it back to you and see which way you want to go. But I like to at least get an idea so we can kind of work on. We have to give something to Dan, so a number, so he can go out and sell this. We can't, you know, vote for me, but yet doesn't have any kind of numbers. So it'd be nice to have at least an inclination as to which way you folks wanted to lean, about a 20, 25, or 30.
You want that during the council meeting, right, Joe?
Yeah, during the main part of the meeting, there is a item M3 and N1 resolution of no, where was that? Anyway, yeah, there's an item in there to discuss the which way we want to go with this. Oh, item M2, yeah.
Yeah.
Discussion of funding options in their old business. Like I say, we're just spinning our wheels right now until we know which way we want to go.
Okay, any other thoughts? If not, we can adjourn for a few minutes before council. All right, thanks, Joe. Thanks,
You're
Dave,
welcome.
council, and see you in a little bit.
Can anybody hear me? Just making sure.
Yep, I can hear you. You're good.
Thank you.
And you got video too.
Perfect.
Hi, Pastor.
Hello, how are you?
Hey, I can hear you great. We're doing good, thank you.
All right, excellent.
Welcome, Tom. Good to have you. We good to go, Teresa?
Can you hear me okay, Russ?
Yep.
Yep, I'm ready to go on my end. You guys are good to go.
We'll call this meeting to order. Roll call, please, Teresa.
Councilmember Wickenhagen,
Here.
Councilmember Iverson,
Here.
Councilmember Marquis,
Here.
Councilmember Peterson, Cliff, you're muted.
Here.
Thank you. Councilmember Bell,
Here.
Councilmember Costello,
Here.
and Councilmember Carlson. I'll mark you here as Mayor Pro Tempore.
And I don't think we need to vote to excuse, but we would like to excuse the Mayor Raymond. She's out of town for this meeting. We'll have Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilmember Wickenhagen, followed by a invocation by Pastor Morris from Selah Calvary.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pastor Morris, we don't hear you.
Let's try this again. How's that?
Perfect.
Okay, sorry about that. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for the day. We thank you for your kindness to us and Jesus. I thank you for these council members that just give of their lives to serve the community of Selah. Lord, that they would do things well, that they would do things rightly and morally and ethically, and that you'd bless them as they do it. We thank you for beforehand. Give them wisdom, spirit of understanding. We ask it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor.
Thanks, guys.
All right, we don't have any agenda changes, public appearances. I think we have Katrina here from the SDA.
Hey, good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. So good to be here. Hey, I just want to remind you that Saturday we have our rummage sale in the old Wells Fargo building from 8 to 3. We want you to come on down and take advantage of some of the awesome stuff that our community has donated to support the design committee. All proceeds go to the design committee. So those are the folks that do all those great flower bins, the grants to help businesses with their facades and their beautification or their landscaping. We have some big goals this year. So obviously every little bit counts. We're still working on Sip and Stroll. We are still looking for food and alcohol vendors, looking for some locations that want to be confirmed. And there's some sponsorship opportunities as well if you'd like to represent your business but don't want to be actually in the Sip and Stroll. We're also looking for volunteers for that day. The Business Discovery Easter egg hunt is going on in downtown Selah until April 14th. The entry form can be found on the Selah Downtown Association's website at selahdowntown.org. There's just lots going on. Is there any questions from anyone?
Katrina, a deadline for the B&O contributions?
B&O, great call, Russ. So the B&O tax contributions deadline is March 31st. We're asking everyone to have everything in by March 30th so we can just kind of know where we sit, where the chips fall. And if there's extra money to be snatched up, then we can make a plan for April 1st. So if anyone's curious, interested, has questions, is having a hard time applying, reach out to me, 509-490-1527, and I would love to help out. Anything else? Well, thank you everyone for the opportunity to update.
Thank you. All right, don't have any getting to know our businesses, communications. Rob, would you proceed?
Sure. The city of Selah is a non-charter code city, and we are presently conducting a regular meeting between the mayor and city council, or in this scenario, really the office of the mayor, with the mayor pro tem presiding. A maximum of 30 minutes will be allotted for public comments. Common sense standards of decorum apply. Comments must be respectful. No profanity or insults are allowed. Comments must pertain to city business and official actions. Constructive criticism of city officials is allowed, but defamation, personal attacks, and impertinent assertions are not allowed. Commenters are limited to one comment per meeting and a maximum of 2 minutes. City staff may disallow or modify any comment that is deemed inappropriate. These standards are subject to revision.
Thanks, Rob. Teresa, do we have any oral or written that you want to share with us?
Yes, sir, we do. Topic is UTV side-by-side, submitted by Peggy Reel of Selah. The comment reads, how is the subject of legalizing UTVs, parentheses, side-by-sides, allowed on city streets in Selah coming? My husband and I have one, and it is totally street legal with both on road and off tabs. Hoping this will be allowed. Please let us know. Thank you, Peggy Reel.
Thank you, Teresa. We don't have any proclamation or announcements. Consent agenda. Rob, would you read that for us, please?
Yes, all items listed with an asterisk are considered routine by the city council and will be enacted by one motion without discussion. Should any council member request that any item of the consent agenda be considered separately, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and become part of the regular agenda.
Thanks, Rob. Any questions on the consent agenda?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
No second.
Moved by Kevin, seconded by Roger. Any discussion, council? Roll call, please, Teresa.
I'm sorry, is it okay if I read the, you need me to do that?
Excuse me, yes. So would you read the consent agenda and then do a roll call?
Okay. I'll go ahead and take roll first. Councilmember Wickenhagen?
Yes.
Councilmember Iverson?
Yes.
Councilmember Marquis?
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson?
Yes.
Councilmember Bell?
Yes.
Councilmember Costello?
Yes.
Councilmember Carlson?
Yes.
The consent agenda reads as follows. Approval of minutes, March 8th, 2022 council meeting. Approval of claims and payroll. Item number 01, ordinance amending ordinance number 2151, establishing the 2022 base salary and wage schedule for management, confidential, and unrepresented employees.
Thank you, Teresa. We have no public hearings. We'll move on to general business. We have no new business. We'll move to old business, which is M2, and turn the time over to Joe.
All right, well, thank you. We're back to discussing the Law and Justice Center. In this M2 packet, we provided some information on indebtedness and more on voter and non-voted obligation bonds, and just information on how the percentages of the 40% of the past year's general elections and 60% of that 40%. Other than that, we're just asking council for direction on how you'd like us to proceed. We would like to go with either one of the year 20, 25 or 30 year options, and whether or not we want to go out to a public vote. Then if the public approves this, then we would just set up the procedure to pay that back with the county on their property values, or we would go to a low interest loan and go through a utility tax proposal and set that up. I know it's a tough decision. Like I say, we'll meet with Mackenzie. We may have to, we'll just have to look at a few things and see what we can do and bring back some options on where we want to be at with the final dollar. If you'd rather take more time and think about this, talk it over with yourself and think about it, or, we might have to look at during the discussions here right now, if whether or not you think that we need to remove the courtroom, then we need to move on that quickly so we can get the architect to look at that.
Thanks, Joe. Kevin?
Do you want a motion on this? Is that how you want to proceed?
Yes, at least that or consensus would work for now.
I'd like to move to take the vote for the new police station to the voters for a bond payment for 25 years. For 25 years.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Kevin for a 25-year bond going to the vote of the people in November, and a second by Liz. Any discussion, council? Kevin?
Oh, sorry. I just forgot to lower it.
Any other council members want to discuss this or ask questions? All right, Teresa, roll call, please.
Oh, Jared has a question.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't hit my little raise hand button. Just a question. I mean, can we change the motion? I mean, and look at the year. Can we to approve it, but decide later on the year stipulation? Does that make sense? What I'm asking, if we just motion to approve moving forward with the voters for a bond, and then come back to, because I'd like to dig a little deeper into the years, but
we can have that discussion now on years. Why don't you give your inputs, Jared? What you're thinking?
Well, I mean, to be honest, I wanted to just kind of pick Dale's brain for a minute. And just kind of see what he recommended, or get an opinion from Dale.
Well, and yeah, I'm always a kind of a cautious person making financial decisions. So I think Jared raises a valid point in that as we get closer, well, as we get closer towards that election, we're going to be able to get a better understanding as to what the interest market is, what our costs are, and we can then project based on different scenarios, 20, 25, 30, what those interest costs would be. And then we could evaluate the actual impact to the taxpayers should we go property tax approach, such that, you know, it may be that 25 years may not be feasible if the interest rate gets too high, that we might determine that's too much of an impact on a taxpayer, is my point.
Well, and just going back, I'm thinking, okay, so what's the likelihood that we go for a 25 or a 30-year bond and we pay it off early? I know that that's an option, but you know, and I would like to just see other examples other than the one we talked about in with the Naruto building. Thoughts on that?
Sure. So yeah, I would think you're definitely more likely to pay off a 30-year earlier than a 25-year.
Sure.
So, you know, it may be that you could end up at 25, even though you initially start out with a 30-year. And, you know, there's unknowns in the future as far as that assessed value, where someone had suggested, I think it was Kevin, about construction activity up pressure and things like that. You know, that may help to reduce the impact on the taxpayers, and you know, that increased amount would help us to be able to pay bonds off early if we get that recall provision.
Correct, and that was going to be my next question is, I mean, yeah, I'd like to explore that option, because obviously that should be that provision should be obviously disclosed up front, so we should know what that looks like, correct? In the underwriting process, or however that's done.
Yes, that makes sense. And I guess I shouldn't say recall, I should say early call.
Early call, correct. Okay. And so I agree with the emotion to move forward and approve. I just kind of want to leave. I don't want to close the door on the term right at this moment, if that makes sense, Kevin.
I'm willing to adjust my motion if that meets the requirements that Joe has for us.
So you want to move forward with a voter approved bond?
Voter approved bond, and we'll discuss prior to August the terms.
Yeah, so the number of years we can decide on later, like I say, then we'll move forward with that, and then we can work on what the election costs are going to be, whether we can have an early retirement, or like Dale was saying earlier, if the assessed citywide valuation goes up, then maybe the bonds could get approved or satisfied earlier. We'll have to check on that.
Okay.
Kevin, would you restate your motion then, if you're?
Yes, I would move that we move forward with a general obligation bond, go to the voters for the creation of the police station.
Also second.
Thanks. First by Kevin, a second by Liz. So we're talking about taking a vote in November with the length and percentage to be determined at a later date as it becomes available. Any thoughts and questions? Teresa, would you take a roll call, please?
Sir, Councilmember Wickenhagen,
Yes.
Councilmember Iverson,
Yes.
Councilmember Marquis,
Yeah.
Councilmember Peterson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bell,
yes,
Councilmember Costello,
Yes.
Councilmember Carlson,
Yes.
unanimous?
Good, well, thank you. I know that was a little tough, so.
Moving on, resolutions, N1, Joe, please.
Okay, we talked last meeting, I believe, about acquiring cell phones for the council members. And what's left of this year, it looks like that it would cost the city about $26.50 and 41 cents to purchase whatever, we're going through Verizon, so they'll probably be Samsung S20 phones. And if you guys want to continue to move forward on that, just ask that you approve this and we'll get this thing going.
I move to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by myself, Russell Carlson, second by Kevin Wiggenhagen. Any discussion, council? Mike?
Yeah, more of just a request, I guess, if we end up doing this, I'd like to keep the number that I have. The phone that I purchased was just for council business. So that's all I'd like, if we are in fact going to go to new phones.
Yeah, we can check in that. I believe that option is available to any carrier.
Joe, you talked about for the rest of the year is $26.50. What's the annual costs year after year expected?
Gosh, I don't know with tax, but it's about $42 a month per phone. So, but there's got to be some taxes and stuff on there.
Well, and the figure I gave you, Joe, does have tax. I believe
Yeah.
that's for 8 months from April 1st through year end. So the same cost over 12 months would be $3,975.
And 62 cents. Yep.
Any other thoughts and questions? Roll call, Teresa.
Councilmember Wickenhagen,
Yes.
Councilmember Iverson,
Yes.
Councilmember Marquis,
Yeah.
Councilmember Peterson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bell,
yes,
Councilmember Costello,
Yes.
Councilmember Carlson,
Yes.
unanimous?
Thank you very much. Moving on to O2, Dale, please.
Okay, so what we have is a budget adjustment for the current year for the replacement of a vehicle in the code enforcement stormwater department. Last year in the budget, they had budgeted the purchase of a Ford Ranger, but then towards the end of the year, Ford came up with some issues, something about child restraints of all things that would not enable them to provide us with that vehicle. So in the current year, I believe this Ford Maverick is a new introduction. It's a similar type pickup. And so anyhow, that vehicle has been purchased and is actually in place. I believe we might have had some earlier discussion on that with you, but however, there was nothing in the budget for 2022 for that purchase. So what this budget adjustment does is that it provides for those expenditures within the within the code enforcement department and in the sewer stormwater department. And that's all I have.
Roger.
Move to approve the ordinance amending ordinance number 2151.
I'll second.
A motion by Roger and a second by Cliff. Any questions, discussion? I'll take a roll call. Teresa, please. Oh, hang
Councilmember
on,
Wickenhage?
hang on. a second. Cliff has a question.
I just want to clarify with Dale, this is in reality, the money that we approved to purchase the pickup last year that we didn't purchase last year, so it went into ending fund, and we're moving it from the reserve back in to do what we said we wanted to do last year.
Well, yeah, this is budgeted this year, similar to what we had projected last year. Last year was only in the 26,000 range, so this is slightly higher. But yeah, last year, the code enforcement share was going to be funded as shown out of 170. Since it didn't happen, that money did remain in Fund 170, and there was a larger carryover into the current year than what had been projected in the 2021 budget. And in the sewer fund, since that did not get purchased and paid for, the ending fund balance at year end ended up with a larger carryover. So yes, you are correct.
Rocky, did you have anything to add on that?
No, Dale's correct. Thank you, Russ.
Any other discussion? I'll take a roll call. Teresa, please.
Councilmember Wickenhagen?
Yes.
Councilmember Iverson?
Yes.
Councilmember Marquis?
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson?
Yes.
Councilmember Bell?
Yes.
Councilmember Costello?
Yes.
Councilmember Carlson?
Yes.
Unanimous?
Thank you. And finishing off with 03 from Dale, please.
Okay, and 03 is another budget adjustment where there were two different projects in the public works arena. The first being a wastewater treatment plant facility plan, and the second being a Crusher Canyon sewer collection system improvements. Those were for design costs, where the actual expenditures, the work that was done in 2021 was less than what had been requested and approved in the 2021 budget. However, when we developed the 2022 budget, we did not carry over those dollars. So I was asked to place those now in the 2022 budget for the amounts that had been previously budgeted but not expended.
Kevin, move to approve the ordinance amending the 22 budget for the water treatment facility plan and the Crusher Canyon sewer collection system.
Mike second.
We got a second from Kevin and, excuse me, a motion by Kevin, second by Mike. Any discussion, council? Roll call. Teresa, please.
Councilmember Wickenhagen?
Yes.
Councilmember Iverson?
Yes.
Councilmember Marquis?
Yeah.
Councilmember Peterson?
Yes.
Councilmember Bell?
Yes.
Councilmember Costello?
Yes.
Councilmember Carlson?
Yes.
Unanimous?
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have no public appearances, so we'll move on to reports and announcements. Chief Lang, can we start with you, please?
Sure. Good evening, everybody. I don't have a lot to report. I told you about 4 grants that we have out right now. We're waiting to hear back on the results of those. But currently, as you're holding a meeting tonight, we're working on a 5th grant, a new one that came out from the DNR. We're trying to get some money together for that, costs together for that grant. And other than that, I'm leaving for the rest of the week tomorrow to go to the pre-construction meeting for the aerial apparatus that we ordered this year. And that's all I've got unless there's any questions for me.
Is there a time frame on receipt of that aerial apparatus?
Yes, and I can't remember the exact date in the contract, but it's something like 600 days. They're a long ways out. We won't see it till probably late 2023.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Moving next, Chief Chrisman, please.
Thank you, Russ. Hello, Council. Thanks for the direction tonight. We will hit the ground running on the public education piece. I guess I share Jared's concern that getting the information out is going to be paramount, I think, to the success of that. So luckily, I've got a group of people who are very anxious and ready, willing to hit the ground running with me. So you'll see us out there as much as possible. I did receive word this week that we were the recipient of a grant for some new heavy vests, helmets, and some rifle rated shields. And so we'll get each of our sergeants' vehicles will be equipped with that. We could only get 4. So it seems like a logical place to put them so the sergeants can respond to those sort of calls where we might need a shield. Anyway, that was good information. We have our newest officer graduating from the police academy next Tuesday. And so Willie Hayes will be back here under FTO status for the next few months, and then you'll see him out on the road. Other than that, I did offer employment to the part-time records clerk that you approved in the last budget cycle. And so if everything goes as planned, she will begin work here April 1st, and I'll do my best to introduce you to her. So other than that, I will turn it over back to Mayor Pro Tem Russ Carlson.
Does anybody have any questions for Chief Chrisman before he tries to sneak out on us?
Why you want to do that?
Chief, I do have a question as a council. How can we assist in educating the public on this this bond that we intend to send out in November?
I want to put together some talking points for everybody, just so that we're all on the same page. Talking to peers of mine who have gone through a building process, one of the things that they have identified as a stumbling point is mixed information. And so, I'll try to get that to you. Anytime that someone asks you a question, disseminating good information is going to be the best response. So I think it's incumbent on me to get that to you, or work with Dale and Joe to make sure that that information is out there. As Joe said, it's kind of a tightrope to walk, because we can't really advocate for the building bond to pass, but the one thing that we can do as a group is get good, solid information out to them so that they can make an informed decision. And that's the approach that I'm going to take with it. Now, the community group that is forming, they're not affiliated with the city or the council, and so they can they can go out and advocate on behalf of the bond and in favor of the bond. So we'll rely on them to do that part as well.
Thanks, Chief. How about Rocky, please?
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. I have a few things for you tonight. The first thing is the wastewater collection system improvements project started yesterday. Tomorrow, the contractor will start grinding the asphalt on Natchez Avenue from Railroad Avenue to Jim Clements. You should see the construction signs going up around town in that area. They're going to phase the grind of the asphalt in 3 phases. So this will be the first phase starting tomorrow. We did work with Treetop, Larson, Monson, everyone in the area to let them know that this project is starting. Also, the businesses in the area were given a handout last Friday to contact me if they had any questions. The second thing for tonight is the Fremont Avenue Sidewalk Improvements Project. The bid opening was today. The apparent low bidder was Belsass and Smith out of Ellensburg. The bid did come in at 6.9% below engineer's estimate, so that was nice. I will be going to the TAC to ask for additional funding for this project. Currently, we're about $23,890 short of full funding for this project. Again, this is a 100% grant, and so I'm going to ask TAC to give us the additional funding for that project so that it continues to be a 100% grant. The third thing I want to mention tonight is the water meter service project. We have a bid opening on that March 31st at 10 a.m. as well as the Natchez Avenue Sidewalk project. We're going to have a bid opening March 31st at 11 a.m. The next thing I want to mention is John Campbell Primary School project. They did request a road closure and it was approved for East Home and North First Street. It's going to be a hard closure right at the intersection so that they can put conduit in for those street light signals. And that's going to be Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of this week. We did require them to open it up for the weekend, and PD and fire were notified of the closure. The residents on the affected street of East Home are getting a handout notifying them of the closure. The next thing I want to mention is we currently have an RFP out for landscape maintenance on South First from North Weenass, or from West Natchez south to Southern Avenue, and North Weenass from approximately East Home Avenue to East Goodlander. And the bids are due on April 5th, 2022 by 9 a.m. to Public Works. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Thanks, Rocky.
Thank you.
Zach, can you give us a report, please?
Good evening, everybody. All I've got to report is soccer practices started last night. All of our leagues are full. We've got wait lists formed in every single one of them. And we are looking for one more coach for our 12U league. So if anybody knows anybody who wants to help out, send them to Kelsey's way. Otherwise, that's all I've got, unless there's any questions.
Thanks, Zach.
Thank you.
Jeff, please.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So in the planning department, we're currently working on a number of different applications. After our council retreat on dealing with code enforcement and updating our codes, I've been communicating with some of my colleagues in the building codes departments for the city of Yakima, who tackled a similar problem with their municipal codes and fire codes. And so I've got some of that information from them of how they revised some of their codes to meet the International Property Maintenance Codes requirements and to streamline that process. So here probably in the coming months, going into the latter half of the spring and through early part of summer, we'll be working with the fire department and other departments to revise those codes and bring back I'll call it a universal ordinance correcting all of these discrepancies between code enforcement chapters. Also, we've been working with the city administrator to go and take a look at the Civic Center. We met with an architect that we've used previously on the on the Wells Fargo building when the city was looking at converting that over to a police station or a city hall. And so we've just had our initial meeting with him, and he's put together an outline that Joe is reviewing, and will be giving him further direction on to how far he wants him to go into that report. Also, I'll be probably bringing to you the second meeting of April, the request for the council to open up our annual comprehensive plan map amendment process. And so what that does is that allows developers and other members of the public who would like to do a comprehensive plan map amendment and or rezoning change can submit those applications. Generally speaking, we hold that process open for about 2 to 3 months to give people ample opportunity to submit those complex applications and work through them. And then we close the process, and then I work through the process of notifying property owners and preparing staff reports, holding the public hearings with the Planning Commission before a final recommendation is brought to you, usually in October or November. But that'll be probably coming up the second meeting of April. On the code enforcement side of things, now that the weather is warming up and people are getting outside, we're also seeing growth and some cleanup needs to happen after the cold months and dead vegetation and things like that. So our code enforcement officer is out visiting all of our properties and everything, and ensuring everybody's cleaning up their properties in accordance with our nuisance codes. Also, I know that Rocky's crews have been out as well, cleaning up the city and sweeping streets and things like that. So it's not just code enforcement and planning and building that is trying to make our community look nicer. On the building side of things, we're seeing a decrease in the number of building permits coming in. I'm guessing that's due to the high price of lumber, but we are still seeing some new homes coming into the door. And then we also have projected out the tap room / brewery near the entrance of town they have their application in, and we expect to see them break ground sometime this spring or summer, as well as the school district bus barn. We have that application in, and it's in plan review right now, and I believe they were scheduled to break ground near the end of summer. And that's pretty much all I have for my report. Any questions? Okay.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Dale, please.
Okay, so the February financial statements are available on our website. I have provided the Finance Committee with the December 21 financial summary, and we're in discussions as to a meeting time so we can look those over. And that's all I have to report.
Thanks, Dale. Rob, please.
I have no public report.
Thank you. Let's go through the council members. We'll start with Cliff, please.
Last week at the council government meeting, we had a fascinating presentation and demonstration of the Regional Crime Resource Center that they're hoping to get all of the jurisdictions brought in. Currently, I think one of the things that we had was that we have 14 law enforcement jurisdictions and 7 dispatch centers. But I brought the wrong email with me today, but I believe that it's the end of this month that COG would like commitment for the various jurisdictions to do. But it was just a fascinating demonstration of what they can do, and it was in real time. And that's all I have.
Thanks, Cliff. On that YVCOG report to Joe or Chief or Dale, do we have any input on what they're asking from us as a city?
For the crime lab, it was just under 15,000 if I remember right.
And I can tell you that there was a pretty robust discussion in the mayor's meeting last week, and I know that Mayor Raymond attended that, and she may be able to report out. I wasn't present, but she can report out on that as well. But there was a big push for those cities that have sort of been dragging their feet or posturing like they didn't want to participate, that they should participate. And so it'll be interesting to see how that ends up. The value in this, just so council understands, is sort of centralizing the NIBIN device, the machine that can look at casings, and I think we've talked about this a little bit. Also, there's a very good chance that we'll get a rapid DNA testing device in this facility as well as several crime scene analysts. And then the additional layer in that is that they'll be doing all of our work. And so they'll not just be tracking the city of Selah or just the city of Yakima, but collating information in regional information into all of Yakima County. And so we can start attaching, a crime that might occur in our city to a crime that would occur in Yakima or Toppenish or Sunnyside or all the way down to Grandview. And so it's pretty exciting to think about the potential of this regional crime center. But again, we'll see how everybody else weighs in on it.
And I just saw Kevin's hand come up. He was at the meeting also, so he might have something. The initial numbers that they sent out, my memory is the same as Joe's, that right now it's like 15, but it depends on how many jurisdictions that participate, that number might be different. But I was amazed that one of the things that they can do is that they can layer the maps, and so and some of the things that just the system presented was crime analysis, intelligence analysis, police transparency, so they can actually have a layer that the public could go see and things. And go ahead, Kevin. What do you remember of it?
Oh, I kind of have, I'm on the sidelines of this, hearing this stuff a lot here. One of the things that isn't exactly, we talk about the DNA analysis, the rapid DNA. What that is a lot of that is the rape kits and going through and analyzing them. Currently, some of those are held for months, if not years. The backlog is extreme. I think that was mentioned. I can't remember which group, but they had 200 cases waiting for that. The benefit of this a lot is that the things can be processed a lot faster locally than having to go to other jurisdictions or waiting for other jurisdictions. That means the prosecutors can proceed quicker. It speeds up a lot of the criminal things. One of the big advocates of this is the Yakima County prosecutor, who is responsible for prosecuting all felonies within the county, and he is a huge advocate of this, as well as the sheriff. So it really is a benefit to all. Right now, I know, in fact, my wife is meeting at a study session with the city of Yakima on this very topic. So the numbers and all of that is kind of still up in the air until they know how many people want to participate. Then they can get firmer numbers. So I hope that helps answer some questions.
And COG has offered to come and do a study session with us if we would like, and to commit to participate. I don't know if we need a resolution from council or if that's a administrative action. I would guess, I mean, at some point we're going to have to come before council to authorize the expenditure. And so I don't know if we need like a resolution for next meeting.
Would be an ILA agreement.
Yeah.
It would have to do.
All right, thanks, Cliff. Liz, please.
No report.
Thank you. Roger?
The dispersal board met last night, and we have an opportunity for the community to invest some sweat equity in the pool for cleanup on Saturday, May 7th.
You went mute, Roger.
Yes, there we go. We also have, besides that May 7th cleanup day, we have May 19th, which is during community days, a Thursday evening. We'll have a dedication of the Bruce Buchanan Memorial Aquatic Center, officially conducting that evening. That's all I have.
Thanks, Roger. Kevin, please.
No report. My meeting with the Yakima Visitors and Convention Bureau is tomorrow, so I have nothing today.
Thank you. Mike?
I have no report.
Jared, please.
Just a couple of short things. First thing, Chamber of Commerce meeting tomorrow. And then the school board, they've narrowed their candidate list down to 6 candidates for the new superintendent position. They've got some info on the candidates listed on the website. There will be meetings next week, interviews, I guess, and then there's a public meeting on the 29th. So those that are interested can navigate their way to the school district's website and get more information there. And that's it.
Thanks, Jared. I have no report. Joe?
Well, just a couple of things. Yeah, we obviously been working on this Law and Justice Center thing a fair amount. Yeah, and then we met with the architect and Civic Center and went over some desires for them to look at. Yeah, I've been meeting with different staff members and Rob to look at updates for the Selah Municipal Code. And last week we had a kickoff meeting with a consultant in the Yakima Valley Emergency Management Office for a FEMA emergency plan update. And Jim Lang and I attended that meeting. And Jim has graciously offered to be the city's contact for that. And I've also spoke a little bit with Rocky, to come up with, they want to have, let's put out a list of concerns that we might have, you know, in our floodway. Oh, yeah, and Cliff makes a good point to Kevin that crime lab dollar amounts all dependent upon who's going to participate. And yeah, I would assume that there will be an interlocal agreement that all the agencies that are going to be involved will be signing, and then the details of that agreement will spell out the participation requirements. So other than that, thank you folks for giving us some guidance on the Law and Justice Center, and we'll proceed with that.
Yes, Cliff.
Now that the weather's getting nice again, I know that our nights are probably too cold now, but have we been in contact anytime recently with the contractor to fix his fix on the tennis courts?
We have not. I've spoke with Rob. Rob is preparing a letter to the gentleman telling that I asked for him to be breached. Rob wants to describe it a different way, something more palatable as far as him abandoning the project. And I think Rocky has been talking with the school district, and I don't know, the school district sports director seems to think that he has got somebody from the Yakima Tennis Club that can help fix this. I don't know if we want to do that or try to just go back out for RFP. And it's just a mess. They have 4 courts on the south courts that they can play on right now.
Thanks, Joe. If there's no other questions, we'll welcome a move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
A second.
Motion by Mike and a second by Kevin. Roll call, please, Teresa. I guess we don't need a roll call, right? We'll just all vote.
Just raise your hand. There you go.
There you go. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Good night.
Aye.